The question is, how do all these things that we've been talking about tie together? How can we do better to say we've got a treasure trove here? This is a very, very rich territory for not just arts and crafts movement, but really for all the arts, but specifically thinking about the arts and craft movement and that moment with Stickley and Robinow and the others. Other cities promote their culture so much better, it seems, that we do, and others have stolen the thunder for not just arts and crafts movement, but even craftsmen. So it's like, how do we toot our horn a little bit? I don't think we even have a brochure. We don't have a map. We don't have really a good website. There are a lot of things we don't, basic things that city governments provide, county governments, but I want to throw that out for discussion.
You should talk to City Hall about doing another walk through Syracuse, because they did have that one of all the downtown sites. And
they're regular. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and then who's the woman that did the brochure?
Sharon Sherman when she
Sharon Sherman.
Yeah, and they did back when Fernando Ortiz, this was almost 20 years ago.
You could redo that.
We're going to. Yeah, we could redo that. It's a brochure.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly the Arts and Crafts Society, right now I think we're the only ones giving tours of any sort, unless other people know different.
So I happened to have a chat with someone yesterday who owns a really nice bungalow in Strathmore neighborhood, and I wanted to pull a little bit of information, so just Googled Robinow Road and some information, and one of my favorite people in Syracuse is Sean Kirst, who wrote for the Syracuse papers for years, and I have a quote from Sean from 2006. And it says, that is relevant somehow to this era in which Syracuse struggles to find itself, always grasping for fast and easy shortcuts to some new identity. Robinow's work is a reminder that a civic persona takes resilience and the commitment of long years. Her achievements here, along with the work of such luminaries as Gustav Stickley and Ward Wellington Ward, gradually established Syracuse as a cradle of the arts and crafts movement. And I have myself been working to try to connect Syracuse through some statewide preservation conferences. We've done a couple of talks about linking this. Amanda's been involved in some of that. And we've had talks where we have people from all over New York State sitting in the audience, but we've brought in folks from East Aurora and from Buffalo and from Rochester and from Syracuse, and trying to make the links to help promote the arts and crafts in what I call upstate, which is anywhere from Albany to Buffalo. But it's something that I talk about fairly often, and I think the more we talk about it, the more we can move it forward. And heritage tourism is such a wonderful thing, and that there's so many great sites to visit in Central New York that several years ago, Dave knows this, Amanda knows this, but several years ago, Craftsman Farms, they do their annual fundraiser every year. A bunch of us put together a notebook of a weekend in Syracuse. We got an overnight donated by an Airbnb. We got memberships to many of the organizations, including the Everson, and Dave gave a tour, and I gave a tour, and Amanda gave a tour. So this was all in the notebook, and they auctioned it off. It raised money for Craftsman Farms. We got everything donated from Syracuse, and two individuals came to Syracuse and did heritage tourism, all regarding arts and crafts. And so
as you know, Lisa is here from Initiatives in Art and Culture, checking us out because we would love to have them do one of their 5-day, regional conferences and tours here. The initiative's been doing this for 30 years for arts and crafts, or
we just did our 26th.
The 26th in the Brandywine Valley this last week. I hope she likes what she heard today, because it would be wonderful for us to work on that and to use that as a blueprint for going on forward with this cultural tourism. I did mention, the need to do this to the mayor at a meeting about a public safety meeting. He has other concerns right now. But I think it was significant that the county executive did make a big move to step in to help save the Wellington House, which is now the Estabrook House. So we know there is some sympathy, and some city people have, we will have a meeting soon with Visit Syracuse, SRY, to talk about the future in that. We have a long way to go because we don't have paid staff, but other institutions do. So if we can partner with government or with some of the foundations.
Are you familiar with the Your Town series that they do on Channel 3 in the summertime?
I know it exists. I've never seen it myself.
This past summer, they did Fayetteville, Manlius area. So we were interviewed at the museum, who we are and what we are. And I always say we're a hidden gem because, well, we are.
Yeah,
we're in the upstairs of the former factory, above the library. Everybody knows the library as a library, not that it was the factory or that we're upstairs. I mean, I should stand up on the roof and shout that the museum's there too. But they did come and they did an interview, which was great. But if you look at our guest book, I always say we have people from our own backyard, who are here, local, and visit us. But then I have people from all over, California, Toronto, England, people coming just to see the museum. And that's so exciting that, we are a hidden gem, but they are making a point to come here. So it's just to connect those dots, with those people who know we're here and share that information.
I think when the Stickley House restoration is complete, that's going to really change the dynamic a lot. But we have to be ready for that because that's coming down the road. The Stickley House will be accessible in some way. We're going to have this new costume gallery. Incredible changes at the Everson, but the total redoing of the ceramics gallery is very exciting. And OHA is in the middle. Lisa Moore, who is the director, couldn't be here today, but she sent me a long email detailing all of the things that are happening. They're totally immersed right now in a major renovation. But when that changes, when that's finished, there's going to be, instead of, I think, much more attractive exhibition spaces, and the archive will have a much more, attractive and layout. So there's a lot coming down the pike. So we need to be, we are part of that. I think we're all part of it, but we need to be getting ahead of it because otherwise we're going to be caught. In 2 years, we're not going to be ready when things happen.
And I think too, that you've done this with the Arts and Crafts website. And the Stickley Museum, we are in the midst of redoing our website, but we are also putting on our website similar interests or like interests, areas of interest. So, we are putting Dalton's and Onondaga, and I send people to you all the time. So we're trying to put these on there so that people can just click and say, oh, what can we do next? Or, oh, where can we go here? Because you want to share that information. They are really interested to be here. They're really passionate people. It's great to feed into that and share it with them.
You can always go on the Gustav Stickley House Foundation website and sign up for their email and their newsletters, and that'll give you ideas of what's going to go on at the house.
And many of the Facebook groups
We share all the time.
So if she's having an event, the foundation is usually promoting it or cross promoting it. So yeah, there's and the Arts and Crafts Society as well.
And who's to say collaboration won't come out of what we have all done today? I mean,
Right.
frankly, this is great bubbling up of ideas for all of us here.
But I think having not just, a central site where people type in what's there to do in Syracuse and it comes up arts and crafts touring and all of these sites are listed and with their times they're open and things like that is important and a little description. But even, a brochure, David, as you mentioned, republishing either the Ward Valley Report or I think a new brochure, a more contemporary brochure, but that could be in hotels and go out to tour agents and that kind of thing. I'm hoping we can get some help with that from the county.
I know that SAH, which is the Society of Architectural Historians, SAH is something that, would be interested. The Decorative Arts Trust is fairly flat-footed, but they do have a calendar, so that's something. For whatever it's worth, I have a sample of what our brochures look like, which could kind of give you an idea of what we would do. And when we go someplace, for us, it's all about the place and what's happening, what happened there, and what is happening there. And so we do a bunch of email blasts, each of which is varied. We do a social media campaign on 3 platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, each of which have different constituencies. This year we're kind of ramping up to try to do even more, but there are, once you kind of get some traction, particularly if you're talking about a place and you're not, if you will, perceived as a rival initiative, because there's all this baloney about that, there are conceivably places where you can also, present information about the region and say, here we are, we don't, you think of this place, but here we are. And something that I have found mind-blowing is that from 1900 to 1905, not only did you have Stickley and Robinow, but you also have these incredibly important publications emanating from here, not to diss the architects, but these incredibly important publications. And so it's almost like, the fountainhead in a way, not Ayn Randishly. And those are some of the things you could do. One of the things that we sort of, from an arts and crafts perspective, whether it's a narrow definition, we happen to have a much broader one, but it is also looking at the ongoing living spirit and what that means. But, is a map that sort of shows the United States not as the couple institutions that have kind of emerged as the dominant single tourist entities, but the national interconnectedness that goes, and that's something I've always dreamed about myself, but since that's a dream of mine, it's not helpful to your end goal, but.
It is. I think Central New York does attract significant number of visitors and tourists, but the things that are promoted are natural environments. We have beautiful, we're between lakes and mountains, and the arts, even though we have a very vibrant art scene and we have some significant institutions, are never in the forefront of promotion of Syracuse as a destination, either because the people in charge feel that on that level we can't compete, maybe even with Buffalo or certain, other places, or Rochester, or because they themselves are not actively involved in the arts. So to some extent it's up to the people who are to do local education. And we have made great steps. One of the things, I think the vibrancy of all these institutions is evidence, but we're still not, as a constellation of institutions, we're not really linking together as strongly as we probably need to be a destination. That's my feeling. I don't know how people respond. It's working. Like, what's going to be the accessibility of the costume collection, and how will it? How do you think about in making it known beyond the warehouse, essentially?
That's so much of the question that we brought to the renovation, because it's in this space, but as you saw in Jeff's images, it was literally behind closed doors. So some people knew it was there. Jeff, through his wizardry and his imagination, brought it out and brought it to life. But even our students, who are literally on that floor every day, didn't really know it was there. So I think some of this is about a central location for optics, where a reliable place to turn to that is dynamic and engaging. And that's what this resource center is about. And that's what all the glass walls are about. And the second part of that is not just the physical accessibility, but also the digital accessibility. And so it's a kind of a huge project, but making our collection fully digitized and accessible and following through with the cataloging and the metadata, so that somebody who's in California or somebody who's thinking about arts and crafts and the furnishings can track a key word and land in our collection. And I think some of that is really about community-sponsored tagging and thinking about ways to actually sponsor events, to have the community come in and advocate for how they want to see that resource activated. We're a little ways away from that, but now we have a space where that can live, and following that up with our digital footprint. Can I throw in one more thought?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, just thinking about the ways in which we experience the city that we live in. I don't know if anybody else participated, or the CNY Fair Housing started an event last year, Run the Red Line. And it's an amazing event. And I think as a runner, as somebody who's out with a young family, one of my favorite ways to experience the city is on my feet and is through running. And I think that like when we do the half marathon or when we do the mountain goat, is there a brochure that I could take with me as I go through these neighborhoods and I go past this architecture? Because I think there are people here who would activate that resource, they just don't know where to look.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a good point that we need to educate, obviously, people here locally about our cultural resources more, either before or in the process of trying to bring in other people. Certainly, it became apparent to me in this process with the National Register Historic District nomination for Westcott, that there is universal ignorance. I would say universal ignorance. I'm not talking about Westcott. Even that there are National Register historic districts throughout the city. So Jeremy Moyer wrote an article very nice article in the Syracuse, in the Post-Standard about 2 weeks ago, and he said, there are lots of these, and so many people have said to me, I saw you in the paper. I said, but we have National Register historic districts. I said, yeah, there are like 20, I don't know how many, there's so many, and they've been here since the 70s, a lot of them. But we don't have it. The last, the guidebook on architecture was published in 1991, I think.
One of the things I was thinking about as I listened to all of you, which, I mean, on the one hand, the last thing you need is another idea, because it's like, oh my God, how are we going to do all this? But through the children. And it's something that we talk about at Glessner as well. So, one way of bringing in a robust demographic is by, creating things that will bring the children bring the parents or whomever. And the other thing I was wondering, and I don't know how your funding goes, but so one of the things that in all the institutions I've worked in has been, a thing, which is, invite all the local government in, show them, what you're doing, because even though it may not feel like it, they are really major contributors. And in the same way that, if Johnson & Johnson or whomever was giving you, whatever, you were wooing them, similarly, the electeds.
Absolutely.
And the third thing I want to say to you all is a very positive thing, which is, and this is, it's a problem, because you can put mechanisms in place, but what you cannot put in place are the people. And you're amazing ambassadors and representatives, and that is something that is fantastic.
Thanks. Well, I think on that note we should close it, and it is 3:30, so that was the set time. I want to thank you all for coming, and all those of you who stayed to the very end. If you're not a member of the Arts and Crafts Society, you should become one. Today, we can only take cash or checks if you want to join. If not, eventually, apparently it's not working on the website, but we will make sure we have your email. You'll get mailings from us, and we'll be having our annual meeting probably towards the end of November. We're just waiting for some confirmation, and other events going forward. We have a lot of events that have been discussed and offered. We need volunteers from the organization basically to come together to do that work to make it actually happen. And I want to thank all of the volunteers from the board and the membership who helped put together today's event. So thanks a lot. Thank you all.